Hello everyone, today I will continue to practice reading English. In this video, I will reading the script of episode 2 Meetings, Office English. Meetings, they are a big part of our time at work. Some people love them and some people hate them. Sometimes meeting can feel a bit pointless and you're just trying to fill the time. So ideally, there's an agenda. So you know what's going to be talked about and discussed. I do sometimes get nervous speaking up in meetings because I have a bit of fear of speaking in front of people. In this episode of Office English from BBC Learning English, we are looking at how to speak up in meetings and get your ideas heard. Welcome to Office English, our guide to the language of the world of the work. In this podcast, we discuss words and phrases you can use to help improve your business. English in the office. I'm Phil and I'm Pippa. Today we are talking about meetings. We already heard that meetings can be very stressful even for native English speakers, but what do you think, Phil? Do you speak up a lot in the meetings? It depends on the meeting. Sometimes you have a meeting with people you work closely with. A small meeting and I find are quite easy to try and contribute and ask people and things like that. Sometimes you in a bigger meeting with people you don't know so well, or maybe you are meeting with people you don't work with, a client or a different department. That's a lot harder. Yeah, I agree. And then when you get stressed like that, you maybe don't want to speak, or you nervous to contribute, or you feel that you are tripping over your words. You are getting what you are about to say wrong, and so that can be really stressful. It's something that I think most people are nervous about, and so today we are going to talk you through the basics of meetings and phrases you can use to get your voice heard. So we've been invited to a meeting. There's lots of people in the meeting who we don't know, and at the start of the meeting, everyone is asked to introduce themselves. How can we do this professionally, Phil? Okay, how about saying, for those who don't know me, I'm Phil and I do podcasts about business English. Yeah, that's nice because it shuts up an expectation that people might not know you. Another one you could maybe try is I'm responsible for. So instead of saying what your role is, what your job title is, just explain what you do. So for those who don't know me, I'm Pippa and I'm responsible for the podcast at BBC Learning English. And I think that's really good because I don't know how it is in other language. But in English, your job title often doesn't really say what you actually do. Yeah, so it's not very useful to tell people that anything else we can say here. Perhaps if you got a particular expertise in something, you could say, I have a background in, and then you are talking about an area that you know a lot of, or that you're working before, or that you are study a lot. And that can be useful, perhaps saying, look, this is how I can be useful in this meeting. Ask me about these things. Yeah, because if you don't know people, they might be questioning why you are there. And so it's good to kind of say early what your expertise is and what you have to bring to the meeting. So about if you don't get a chance to introduce yourself at the start of the meeting, Phil. Well, yeah, it can be useful sometimes if you can just bring one of those phrases in the first. In the first time when someone asks you to speak and you say, oh, for those who you don't know me, and then you talk about your background or what you are responsible for, just to people who know who you are and how you can help the meeting. Yeah, and if you are kind of got that rehearsed, it's a good way to kind of start talking. You are got over the initial nervousness, and then you can actually say what you want to say. Right, so we've introduced ourselves and the meeting has started. What about if someone else make an interesting point and we want to respond confidently in a meeting? Yeah, so we got a few phrases here. We could say something like, that's a really important point. It makes me think about, and then say our point. What do we think about that, Phil? Well, it helps you engage with what someone's saying. You might be linking things that are useful. Yeah, I think it can be useful, particularly if what they say is really relevant to what you are trying to shout out in a meeting. Yeah, and it's conversational. Another option we can have if we want to kind of disagree with somebody is to say, I like that idea, but my thinking is a bit different. I guess, as you say, it's a polite way of disagreeing. Do you think they really like that idea when they say it? I don't know. It depends, I think, on what we are talking about. But it's just a politer way to say it. It's not really very helpful if in a meeting, especially if you don't know people, to say, oh, I think that idea is rubbish and I prefer my idea. No. So it's all about kind of being friendly and polite with people in the meetings. Another way you could try and enter the conversation is to just ask a question. So you could say, what about, or how about we try this? That's just a good way to kind of enter into a discussion in a conversation. Yeah, it's like you are putting something on the table for someone to talk about. But short of saying what about or how about rather than a very direct question, it's just a bit more polite. And now a really difficult scenario. What if there are lots of important people in a meeting who are on dominating the conversation? The meeting is moving really quickly and you are nervous about speaking, but you have some ideas too. What do you do, Phil? Well, I think I maybe do this too much, but it's you kind of sit and wait for the right moment. So you wait for it to be there to be a little bit of a pause and then you can say something. Yeah, but what about if you don't get the pause and you need to interrupt? What would you say then, Phil? We usually start by apologizing, so you could say something like, I'm sorry, can I just ask? And that just is an interesting word there because you are kind of saying, I'm not sure about doing it. You are almost apologizing for asking there. I'm sorry, can I just ask? I'm sorry, but I think we need to talk about this topic. And again, I think it's a bit hesitant, but sometimes that can be useful because you're showing, it's a way of showing respect and being polite. Yeah, so apologizing and then kind of saying, I'm sorry, but I think we should talk about this is a really useful way in. Another thing we can do is short up, ask permission to enter the discussion. So say something like, could I add a thought or could I say something? You are kind of showing that you realize that other people in the room are important, and so short up, asking permission to join as well. Yes, I think that's a really good idea. Of course, we are talking here from a context. We are here in the UK and the Britain. We tend to have politeness as a really important thing. So we say, I'm sorry a lot, or can I just do this? But this does differ in different places. Some other cultures are a lot more direct. And maybe there's you don't need to apologize quite so much for saying things. So it's perhaps listen to how people speak in the place where you are working. Cause there's cultures change done. But this does differ in different places. Some other cultures are a lot more direct, and maybe this you don't need to apologize quite so much for saying things. So it's perhaps listen to how people speak in the place where you're working, cause these cultures change aren't they? They are different in different places. So we learn some useful phrases to help us speak up in meetings. But let's hear again from our BBC colleagues, because there are one thing we haven't talked about, and that's how to make sure our meetings are useful. Sometimes meetings can feel a bit pointless and you're just trying to fill the time. So ideally there's an agenda so you know what's going to be talked about and discussed. Beth talked about having an agenda. So what do you mean by agenda, Phil? An agenda is a list of things that you are going to talk about in a meeting, and it's very common, definitely in Britain, it's very common that you might have a slot uh, at the end that might say A or B, any other business. But the idea is that during the other slot, you only talk about the things that are on the agenda. And it's ideally you share it before the meeting so everyone knows what you are going to be talking about, why you are talking about those things, and it gives you a chance to think about what you might want to say. Yes, it's really helpful because then you can prepare in advance, and if you are in charge of the meeting, making sure you have an agenda is really helpful because it helps you stay in control of the conversation, and you make sure that the meeting isn't a waste of time. So you can say things like, "Oh, I think we are getting a bit off topic. Please, can we stick to the agenda and make sure we talk about the important things?" Yeah, that give you nice, efficient meetings that finish on time, hopefully. Well, that's the idea anyway, and that's it for this episode of Office English. Remember, you can find courses and activities to help you with your English at BBC Learning English. Next time, we'll be talking about how to remind people to do something or chase them up for a response. And of course, we'll discuss some essential phrases to help you unlock your career potential. See you then. Bye. Bye bye. That's all for the reading of episode 2. Email the episode 2 meetings. Thank you for watching my video today, and let's give your point, give your idea of my reading time. Thank you so much for your contribution, and let's subscribe my channel to follow up my progress of studying English. Thank you. Bye bye.